You know, that feeling like your brain has about, I don't know, 10 tabs open, all playing slightly different, slightly annoying music.
Oh, yeah.
Your body's kind of tense, maybe your jaw is clenched, shoulders up around your ears, you're just running, but you feel like you're constantly behind, pulled in a million directions.
Mhm.
It's that hum of overwhelm, right? The constant feeling of not having enough time, enough energy, enough you to go around. It feels like modern life is that feeling for so many of us.
It absolutely resonates. That
Yeah.
sense of being perpetually on, juggling endless demands and the resulting internal noise and physical tension.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's become almost the default state in our fast-paced world.
And that leads us right to the central question for this deep dive. In the middle of all that chaos, that relentless pressure, is it actually possible to find a sense of calm? Like a way to feel centered, grounded, and present, even just for a few minutes without having to drastically change your life or, flee to a remote mountaintop.
And the truly fascinating part, as we dug into the source material for this deep dive, the articles, the research, is that the answer is not just yes. It's a really resounding and scientifically supported yes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it reveals not only that finding this calm is possible, but it gives us practical, accessible steps for how to do it. Steps backed by some pretty compelling research.
Okay, that's a powerful promise. So let's unpack this journey. We're going to first really understand what this constant state of pressure is doing to us, right? Like at a deep biological level.
Right. Got to understand the problem first.
Then we'll introduce a powerful approach that sounds like it serves as a direct antidote. We'll explore exactly how this approach works in our bodies and brains, backed by the science.
Well, the mechanisms.
And finally, we'll get incredibly practical, giving you concrete, actionable tools for weaving this into even the busiest and, frankly, most anxious life.
Exactly. Because to truly appreciate this solution, like you said, we first need to fully grasp the problem. It's more than just feeling a bit stressed or frazzled. It has significant measurable impacts on our health and our very physical being.
And it sounds like our sources give us a really clear starting point by defining stress. It's not just some vague feeling, is it?
No, not at all. One source, referencing the National Institute of Mental Health, clarifies that stress is actually the brain and body's fundamental, natural response to change or challenge or demand. Think of it as an ancient built-in alarm system,
Okay.
fundamentally designed to help us handle threats in our environment.
So this is the famous fight or flight response we always hear about, the one designed for, the classic example, encountering a saber-toothed tiger.
Precisely. When your brain perceives a threat, whether it's that ancient tiger or maybe more realistically today, a looming project deadline, it triggers a cascade of physiological events.
Sure.
Hormones like cortisol and adrenaline flood your system. Your heart rate speeds up, blood pressure spikes, your breathing quickens, and stored energy gets released as blood sugar.
Right.
All of this is designed to prepare you to either confront the threat or, run away fast. It's a phenomenal short-term survival mechanism.
Right. In that moment of acute danger, it's literally a lifesaver. But the problem is, modern life throws constant threats at us that aren't actual physical dangers, right? Like the flood of emails, the demanding boss, financial worries, social pressures, the endless stream of negative news.
And this is where that ancient system becomes, maladaptive. Our bodies aren't really designed to stay in that hyper-alert fight-or-flight state day after day, week after week.
Makes sense.
If we don't find ways to sort of turn down the volume on that alarm system, it becomes a state of chronic stress.
Okay.
And that has profound long-term consequences.
What kind of consequences are we talking about, beyond just feeling exhausted and on edge all the time?
Well, those physiological changes we just talked about, the elevated heart rate, blood pressure, and blood sugar, if they persist because of chronic stress, they significantly increase your risk for a whole range of serious health problems over time. Our sources specifically link this chronic state to conditions like obesity and heart disease. But actually, it goes even deeper than that.
Deeper? How so?
Well, one source makes a really compelling point. Chronic stress is powerfully linked to turning on genes that cause chronic inflammation throughout the body.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this isn't just like localized inflammation from an injury. This is systemic, low-grade inflammation that's just simmering constantly in the background.
Inflammation, as in the kind of inflammation that we're hearing more and more, is a root factor in lots of major chronic diseases.
It's exactly that. The source describes chronic inflammation as essentially the root cause of many lifestyle-related chronic diseases. So when you're constantly stressed, you're not just feeling bad mentally or physically in the moment, you're actively activating biological pathways that contribute to developing serious long-term health issues like diabetes, cardiovascular disease, certain cancers, even neurodegenerative conditions.
Wow.
It's like a fundamental assault on your body's well-being at the cellular level.
Wow, that really does elevate the stakes. I mean, it's not just about managing discomfort, it's about protecting your long-term health and vitality.
Absolutely. And it's not just the body that's affected. Chronic stress physically changes your brain.
It changes your brain.
Yeah. Prolonged exposure to stress hormones, particularly cortisol, has been shown to alter brain structure. The amygdala, that small almond-shaped area deep inside that processes fear and threat detection, can actually get bigger and become more active.
Oh, wow.
And at the same time, crucial areas involved in higher-level thinking, things like learning, memory, planning, decision-making, the hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex, they can literally appear smaller.
So chronic stress doesn't just make us feel more reactive or forgetful. It's physically remodeling the brain to be more reactive and less capable of focused thought and memory. That's kind of scary.
That's the implication, yeah. Your brain becomes wired to be on high alert, constantly scanning for threats, while simultaneously impairing the very areas you need for calm problem solving, creative thinking, and just navigating complexity effectively. It's a pretty grim picture for trying to thrive in a demanding world.
And the statistics really underscore how widespread this is, don't they? One source pointed to a CDC finding that a staggering 2/3 of American workers, 66%, report lying awake at night, troubled by the physical or emotional effects of stress.
66%. That's huge.
It's huge. And the 2019 Stress in America survey showed an alarming trend of rising stress levels among adults, correlating directly with those elevated cortisol levels linked to diseases like cancer, diabetes, and depression that you just mentioned.
It really highlights that this isn't just an individual struggle. It's arguably a public health challenge driven by the pressures of modern life. It's that profound paradox you touched on earlier. Stress evolved to help us survive acute dangers, but its chronic form in contemporary society is actively working against our well-being, our productivity, our creativity, our innovation, basically everything we need to function and flourish.
Okay, so the challenge becomes finding a way to interrupt this cycle, right? To shift out of that constant fight or flight state and build some resilience.
Which brings us nicely to the potential antidote that our sources explore in depth. Mindfulness.
Mindfulness, okay, a term that's become quite common. But what is it really at its core? What does it actually mean?
Well, at its heart, mindfulness is simply the basic human capacity to be fully present and aware. It's the ability to pay attention to where you are and what you're doing, moment by moment, without getting completely swept away or overwhelmed by thoughts, feelings, or external stuff.
Okay.
As one source puts it, it's about being present, aware, and not overly reactive.
So it's not about emptying your mind or stopping thoughts, which I think is a common misconception. It's more about paying attention differently.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's about paying attention to the present moment with a sense of openness, curiosity, and, importantly, non-judgment. The fundamental premise, highlighted in another source, is that by intentionally cultivating this present moment awareness, you directly counter the effects of chronic stressors.
How so?
Because where does much of our stress really come from? It's often not the present moment itself, right? It's from dwelling on the past, past regrets, mistakes, which can feed into depression, or worrying about the future anticipated problems, uncertainties, which definitely fuels anxiety.
Ah, okay. So stress pulls us into the past or the future, and mindfulness is kind of the anchor that brings us back to the now.
Precisely. And in doing that, it creates this crucial space. Instead of our habitual, often stress-driven reactions to challenges, mindfulness allows us to pause, observe, and then respond more reflectively and skillfully. It shifts us from being, purely reflexive automatons operating on autopilot to being more intentional participants in our own experience.
You mentioned the brain changing under stress. Does mindfulness relate to shifting our internal state or mode of operating?
It absolutely does. Mindfulness practice helps shift our primary mode of mind from what's sometimes called the doing mode to the being mode.
Doing versus being. Okay.
Yeah, the doing mode is our default state. Especially in modern life, it's focused on goals, problem solving, fixing things, getting things done. And it's tightly coupled with that action-oriented stress response.
Right.
The being mode, on the other hand, is about simply experiencing the present moment as it is, without necessarily needing to change or fix it. It's associated with acceptance, relaxation, and simply being. Mindfulness cultivates this being mode, offering an internal refuge from the relentless drive of the doing mode.
That makes a lot of sense. So, okay, we understand what chronic stress does to us, and we see mindfulness as a potential antidote by anchoring us in the present and helping us shift our state of mind. But how does this actually work on a deeper level? Is it just a psychological trick, or is there actual concrete science showing how it affects our bodies and brains?
This is where the science gets truly exciting, and our sources really dig into the specific physiological and psychological mechanisms. On the physiological side, one of the most powerful effects, especially through practices like mindful breathing, is activating the parasympathetic nervous system.
Okay, the rest and digest system, the opposite of fight or flight.
Exactly. The direct counterpoint to the fight or flight sympathetic system. Intentional breathing can literally help switch off the alarm system and turn on the body's natural calm response.
Wow. So just breathing differently can do that.
It initiates that shift, and there's a specific pathway involved, the vagus nerve. This is a major cranial nerve, like a communication superhighway between your brain and many of your internal organs, heart, lungs, gut.
Okay.
And one source highlights a fascinating detail. Audible breathing vibrations, especially during a long exhale, actually signaled the vagus nerve. This signal tells your brain, hey, it's safe now, prompting a shift from the sympathetic stress-reactive state towards the parasympathetic restorative state.
That's incredible.
Just that simple act of focusing on and subtly influencing your breath can initiate this biological shift.
So it's not some abstract idea. There's a direct nerve pathway where focused breathing tells your body it's okay to relax.
Exactly. And the physiological cascade that follows includes reducing heart rate, lowering blood pressure, and allowing the body to engage in essential reparative and restorative functions that get suppressed during chronic stress.
Mm-hmm.
And while it might not happen instantaneously, consistent practice of mindfulness, particularly those focused on breath, has been shown over time to help lower those baseline elevated cortisol levels associated with chronic stress.
So it builds a foundation of physiological calm over time. What about the psychological effects? How does mindfulness change our internal experience, our thoughts and feelings?
Right. Source 1 outlines several key psychological mechanisms. Firstly, and maybe most fundamentally, mindfulness increases your awareness of your thoughts and emotions.
Just noticing them more.
Yeah, but it's not about judging them or trying to get rid of them. It's more about noticing them as mental events without automatically identifying with them or believing them implicitly. This ability to observe thoughts, kind of like watching clouds drift across the sky without getting pulled into the storm they might represent, is critical. It can prevent your mind from automatically triggering the full-blown stress response just based on an anxious or negative thought.
So you can have the thought, oh no, I'm going to fail this presentation, without your body immediately going into full panic mode. You create a little space between the thought and the reaction.
Precisely. And that space is vital. It creates a pause before you react automatically to a challenging situation or a difficult thought. This pause allows you to access what's sometimes called your wise mind.
Wise mind.
Yeah, a state where you can integrate both rational thought and maybe intuitive wisdom to come up with a more considered, effective solution, rather than just an impulsive, stress-fueled reaction you might regret later. It engages those higher cognitive functions in the prefrontal cortex.
Speaking of the brain, you mentioned chronic stress shrinks certain areas. Can mindfulness practices actually influence brain structure in positive ways? Counteract that.
Research strongly suggests this is possible, yes. While chronic stress can shrink the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex and enlarge the amygdala, studies on long-term meditators and participants in mindfulness programs have actually shown the opposite effect.
Really?
Yeah. Mindfulness practice is associated with reduced activity and potentially even decreased size of the amygdala, which lowers that background level of threat reactivity. And conversely, it's linked to increased gray matter density in areas like the hippocampus and specific regions of the prefrontal cortex, those areas critical for learning, memory, emotional regulation, and executive function.
That's profound. It implies that consistently practicing mindfulness isn't just managing stress in the moment, it's potentially rewiring your brain for greater resilience, better emotional control, and enhanced cognitive function over time, like exercise for the brain.
That's a great analogy. It's the exciting potential the research points to. And there are other psychological benefits too. Things like increased awareness of your body's subtle signals. You become more attuned to physical tension, fatigue, or pain earlier, allowing you to take proactive steps before things escalate. It also enhances emotional intelligence. By understanding your own emotional landscape better, you become more empathetic and skilled at navigating social interactions and conflicts. And it naturally fosters an increase in kindness and compassion, both towards yourself and others, which is inherently soothing and directly counters the stress response.
Does it also improve focus? That seems a bit counterintuitive if you're supposed to be open to everything happening in the moment.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's not about being distracted by everything. It's about intentionally directing your attention. By practicing bringing your focus back gently whenever the mind wanders, which it will, constantly you strengthen your ability to concentrate, like building a muscle. This improved focus allows you to be more efficient, maybe reduce errors caused by mindlessness, and can even help you enter states of flow or the zone where you're fully absorbed in a task, which is actually a highly engaging and much less stressful state.
And what about that idea of reframing stress? How does mindfulness help there?
Well, by observing the physical and mental sensations that arise under pressure without getting completely consumed by them, mindfulness allows you to change your relationship with the experience. You might begin to notice that the physiological arousal associated with stress, the faster heart rate, the energy can sometimes be perceived as, well, energy or excitement, rather than solely negative or threatening. It's about shifting the narrative you have around the experience of pressure.
Okay, the science is incredibly compelling. It really sounds like mindfulness offers powerful physiological and psychological tools to counter the, frankly, devastating effects of chronic stress and actually build resilience. But, and this is the big barrier for most listeners, I think, who are living that busy, overwhelmed life we described at the start. How do you actually do this? Where do you find the time? Where do you even begin?
That's the absolutely critical question. Right. And Source 2 directly addresses this by emphasizing that mindfulness is not some all-or-nothing practice that requires hours of silent meditation on a mountaintop somewhere.
Right, thankfully.
Yeah, the power lies in incorporating simple, quick practices into your existing daily life. It's really about consistency, not necessarily duration.
Okay, so we don't need to carve out an hour-long block every day. What are some of these practical, accessible tools then?
Breathing exercises are really the gateway practice, I think, precisely because of that direct link to the parasympathetic nervous system and the vagus nerve we discussed earlier. Source 1 describes a foundational calming technique. Basically, inhale for a specific count, say 4, hold briefly if you want, and then exhale for twice as long, maybe a count of 6 or 8.
Focusing specifically on making the exhale longer than the inhale. That's the key.
Exactly. The longer exhale is really key because it's the phase of breathing that most strongly signals the parasympathetic system. Okay, time to calm down. And Source 1 even notes you can add a gentle constriction in your throat on the exhale to make a soft, kind of ocean-like sound. That adds another layer of vibration that signals the vagus nerve, further promoting relaxation.
Interesting. And these can be really short practices, like super short.
Absolutely. Source 2 offers specific timed examples that are perfect for busy people. There's the 1-minute relaxation breathing. I mean, think about it. You have 20,440 minutes in a day. Can you find 1 or 2 of those minutes? Right. The practice is simple. Close your eyes if you're comfortable. Inhale for a count of 4. Exhale slowly for 8. Repeat just 4 or 5 times. And as you exhale, you can even picture stress leaving your body. Then just notice how you feel. That single minute can genuinely make a difference.
Okay, 1 minute feels achievable for almost anyone, even in the most frantic schedule. That's encouraging.
Right. And if you can spare 5 minutes, there's the 5-minute mindful breathing. Set a timer, find a comfortable seat, gently relax your body, and simply tune into the natural rhythm of your breath. You don't even need to change it, just observe it. Feel the rise and fall. If your mind wanders, which, let's be honest, it will.
Constantly,
just gently guide it back to the sensation of breathing. Using a short guided audio can be really helpful here too, especially when starting out.
What about struggling with stress and anxiety at night, trying to fall asleep? That's a huge issue for people.
Yeah, sleep issues are very common with chronic stress. Source 1 offers specific deep breathing techniques, particularly helpful for before bed. Slower, deeper breathing has a direct impact on lowering heart rate and blood pressure, helping you transition to a more relaxed state, ready for sleep.
Okay.
One technique is diaphragmatic breathing, or belly breathing. Sit or lie down comfortably. Inhale slowly through your nose to a count of 10, focusing on your abdomen expanding, not your chest rising. Then exhale slowly through your nose, also to a count of 10. Repeat just 5-10 times. Research even suggests a single session of this can help reduce blood pressure and heart rate.
That forced slowness, the 10-count inhale and exhale, must be a really strong signal to the nervous system to just slow down.
It is. It really encourages that shift.
Yeah.
Another specific technique mentioned for sleep and relaxation, which comes from ancient yoga practices, is the 4-7-8 breath. Yeah. Here's how you do it. Place the tip of your tongue just behind your upper front teeth and keep it there for the whole exercise. Exhale completely through your mouth, making a gentle whoosh sound for a count of 8. Close your mouth. Inhale quietly through your nose to a count of 4. Hold your breath for a count of 7. Then exhale completely through your mouth with that whoosh sound again to a count of 8.
Okay, 4 inhale, 7 hold, 8 exhale with the whoosh.
Exactly. And you only need to repeat this sequence just 3 more times after the first one, so 4 breaths total. It's designed to be a really powerful, quick relaxant developed specifically for sleep and anxiety.
Wow. Okay, those breathing techniques offer a great starting point because you can literally do them anywhere, anytime. What are some other practical tools from the sources, things beyond just breathing?
Well, Source 2 suggests something really simple. Just paying attention to your senses. This is a practice you can integrate throughout your day without adding any extra time at all. Just pause for a moment, maybe 10 seconds, 20 seconds, and deliberately focus on what you are experiencing through one or more of your senses right now.
So instead of just staring blankly at my computer screen, I would really see the pixels or the colors. Or instead of just hearing background noise, I'd really listen to specific sounds, like the air conditioning or a bird outside.
Exactly. Or step outside and actively smell the air, notice if it's damp, or has hints of flowers, or maybe city exhaust. Touch a surface, your coffee mug, a piece of wood on your desk, the fabric of your clothes, and really feel the texture, the temperature. Look out a window and focus on the intricate details of a leaf, or the specific shades of blue in the sky. The goal is simply to use your sensory input to fully anchor your attention in the immediate present moment, even if only for a brief moment before you dive back into your busy task.
That feels like something genuinely doable while waiting for the kettle to boil or standing in line at the grocery store.
Precisely. It's about finding those little pockets. And a related practice, also from Source 2, is mindful eating. Since we all eat every day anyway, it's a perfect built-in opportunity.
Oh, okay.
It's about slowing down, putting away distractions like phones or laptops if possible, and focusing completely on the sensory experience of the food you're consuming.
So really paying attention to the sight, smell, taste, and texture of your meal, not just shoveling it in while scrolling.
Exactly. What does it look like? What are its colors and shapes? What does it smell like? As you chew, notice the textures in your mouth. Is it crunchy, soft, smooth? What flavors emerge? Is it sweet, savory, sour? Pay attention to the temperature. Chew slowly. Source 2 notes that beyond just the mindfulness benefits of being present, this practice can also help you become more attuned to your body's hunger and fullness signals, which might lead to eating less, reducing cravings, and even improving digestion as a bonus.
What about movement? We heard earlier how static and sedentary modern life can often be. Can movement be mindful?
Absolutely. Mindful movement is incredibly valuable. Source 1 highlights meditative movements like yoga, which, as you know, has been studied extensively for stress reduction. It shows benefits across various populations, cancer survivors, pregnant women, the elderly. Even gentle yoga poses like forward bends, child's pose, or just putting your legs up the wall can be used specifically at night to promote physical and mental relaxation before sleep.
And even just a simple walk can be mindful movement, right?
Definitely. Source 1 points out that modern life often neglects basic physical activity. Taking a walk engages those neglected muscles, gets your heart rate up slightly, and provides a fantastic opportunity for mindful practice. Instead of rushing or thinking about your endless to-do list, you can focus on the sensation of your feet hitting the ground, the rhythm of your breath, or just noticing the sights and sounds around you without judgment. It benefits both your body and your mind simultaneously.
Okay, so breathing, senses, eating, movement. Source 1 also listed a variety of other ways to intentionally counter stress and cultivate presence in daily life, didn't it?
It offered a great collection of practical ideas, yeah. One key one is trying to minimize multitasking. We often feel like we have to multitask to keep up, but the source points out that constantly switching between tasks is actually mentally exhausting, inefficient, and a major source of stress.
Guilty as charged.
We all are.
Yeah.
Trying to give your full attention to one thing at a time, even for short bursts, is a mindful act that really reduces that chaotic internal feeling.
That feels like a direct challenge to the whole busy mindset, doesn't it?
It really is. And related to that, intentionally getting your face out of your phone is crucial. Your phone is a constant source of distraction. pulling your attention away from wherever you are and whoever you might be with. Setting boundaries, maybe avoiding it during meals or when you're talking to someone. Using those moments, you'd automatically reach for it, like waiting in line or in an elevator, to instead just check in with your breath or notice your surroundings.
Looking at something green was another simple one mentioned, like nature.
Yes. Source 1 suggests spending time in nature, or even just looking at trees or plants from your window. Nature seems to have this way of slowing us down, putting our own frantic problems into a larger perspective against something much bigger and slower paced. It's a simple way to ground yourself.
In play, how does play fit in?
Play.
Yeah.
Doing something simply for the enjoyment of it with no specific purpose, goal, or outcome in mind. Just, wander around, play cards, go bowling, read purely for pleasure. Allowing yourself this unstructured, uncritical time helps let go of that relentless doing mode and invites surprise, exhilaration, and genuine refreshment.
Really listening to music is another practice, not just having it on as background noise.
Right. Source 1 suggests actually sitting or lying down and truly listening to a full piece of music, an album, a symphony, whatever resonates. Allow yourself to just sink into the sounds, letting them occupy your attention fully. Research, as confirmed by Source 1, shows music can be very effective in calming the nervous system and fighting stress. Soothing instrumental music, classical, light jazz, string tunes, nature sounds, is often recommended for this purpose.
And perhaps the most challenging one for many people, especially in the U.S. culture, take a vacation.
Yeah, Source 1 makes a strong point that Americans take significantly less time off now compared to previous generations. While it seems obvious, intentionally disconnecting and taking time off is absolutely vital for interrupting chronic stress. It's not just a luxury, it's really a necessity that actually improves your productivity when you return, benefits your relationships, and allows for crucial self-care and mental replenishment.
Okay, so beyond these specific actions, Source 1 also emphasized cultivating a certain attitude, didn't it? Something about self-compassion.
Yes, this is really a cornerstone of mindfulness practice. When you inevitably experience failure, or make a mistake, or just fall short of your own expectations, which we all do, self-compassion involves being mindful of the difficult emotions that arise, like sadness, disappointment, frustration, observing them without getting completely identified with them or feeding them with harsh self-criticism.
So not beating yourself up.
Exactly. It's recognizing that imperfection and struggle are just part of the shared human experience. And critically, it's about speaking to yourself internally the way you would speak to a dear friend who is struggling with kindness, understanding, and encouragement. This internal soothing response actively counters the physiological stress response. It's incredibly powerful.
And fostering genuine connection with others was mentioned too. How does that link?
Absolutely vital. Source 1 argues that after our basic survival needs are met, connecting positively and meaningfully with others is one of the most fundamental human needs. And interestingly, as you practice mindfulness and take better care of your own internal state, it often becomes easier to turn your attention outwards and engage more authentically with others, which in turn reduces feelings of isolation and stress.
And extending that connection outwards, practicing compassion for others or altruism.
Yes, helping others or acts of altruism can have a profound impact on your own state of mind. Source 1 suggests that shifting your focus to maybe alleviating the suffering of others or simply being kind changes your own internal chemistry. It often increases your energy levels and significantly boosts your overall well-being. The source gives a powerful example. Think about if a friend calls you with a real emergency. You often just drop everything to help them, right? In that moment, your own troubles momentarily fade away, and you're energized by the act of helping. It highlights how powerfully shifting your focus outwards can pull you out of self-absorption and stress.
That's a great point. So, wow, we have a whole toolkit of accessible practices, from tiny breathing exercises and sensory moments to mindful eating, movement, cultivating connection, self-compassion, even taking a vacation. But does all this actually make a difference in a clinically meaningful way? What does the hard science say when it puts these practices to the test, particularly for things like significant anxiety and depression?
This is where Source 3, a comprehensive meta-analysis, provides really crucial validation. It moves beyond anecdotes. And remember, there are dedicated research centers at major universities like UMass and Oxford studying the effects of mindfulness seriously now.
Okay, and a meta-analysis. That's where they combine results from lots of different studies.
Exactly. It's a powerful type of study because it combines the results of many individual studies to get a more robust overall picture of effectiveness. It helps smooth out inconsistencies between smaller studies.
And this specific meta-analysis looked at a substantial body of research on mindfulness.
Yes, It analyzed findings from 39 separate studies involving a total of 1,140 participants who had received some form of mindfulness-based therapy, often called MBT. These studies covered a diverse range of people, including individuals with diagnosed clinical anxiety and depression disorders, as well as those experiencing anxiety and depression symptoms alongside other medical conditions like cancer and chronic pain.
Okay, so a broad range. And what were the overall findings? How effective was mindfulness-based therapy for reducing anxiety and depression symptoms across all these studies?
Okay, so across the entire sample, the meta-analysis found that MBT was moderately effective for improving anxiety symptoms. The effect size, measured by something called Hedges G, was 0.63.
Hedges is G.
Yeah, and it was also found to be moderately effective for improving mood and depression symptoms, with a Hedges G of 0.59.
Okay, can you break down what Hedges G and moderately effective mean in practical terms for listeners? Like, is that good?
Sure. Hedges G is just a standard statistical measure used in these kinds of analyses to quantify how big an intervention's effect is across different studies. It lets you compare apples to apples, essentially. A commonly used convention, sort of a rule of thumb from a researcher named Jacob Cohen, helps interpret these numbers. A G around 0.2 is considered a small effect, 0.5 is considered a medium or moderate effect, and 0.8 or higher is considered a large effect.
Okay, so 0.63 for anxiety and 0.59 for depression. That's solidly in the moderate range then. Meaningful.
Exactly. It indicates a meaningful positive impact on symptoms across the board, on average.
So moderately effective overall, but did the effectiveness vary? Like, was it more effective for people with diagnosed clinical conditions compared to those with just general stress or milder symptoms?
This is where the findings become particularly striking, as noted in Source 3. When the researchers specifically looked at participants who had diagnosed clinical anxiety disorders or diagnosed mood depression disorders, the effect sizes were significantly larger.
How much larger?
For those with anxiety disorders, MBT showed a large effect size of 0.97 for improving anxiety symptoms. And for those with mood depression disorders, it demonstrated a large effect size of 0.95 for improving depressive symptoms.
Wow, 0.97 and 0.95. That's nearly into the very large category, right? That suggests mindfulness-based therapy is particularly powerful for individuals struggling with more significant levels of anxiety or depression.
It's a really key finding. It implies that MBT isn't just helpful for general stress reduction, but it's a highly efficacious intervention precisely for those populations who are experiencing the greatest distress and impairment from clinical levels of anxiety or depression.
Okay.
The meta-analysis also found significant, though typically smaller, effects in other groups. For instance, it showed moderate effects for anxiety in cancer patients, G 0.64, and small to moderate effects in people with chronic pain disorders, G 0.44 for anxiety, G 0.51 for depression. So still meaningful improvements for people facing very significant health challenges alongside their mental health struggles.
What types of mindfulness practices were primarily included in these studies that showed these effects? Was it just meditation?
The meta-analysis mainly focused on studies involving structured mindfulness programs like mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, and mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, MBCT.
MBSR and MBCT. Okay.
Yeah, MBSR is typically an 8-week program focusing on cultivating presence through formal meditation practices like body scans and sitting meditation, plus some gentle mindful movement like yoga. MBCT is also usually an 8-week program that integrates those mindfulness practices with elements of cognitive behavioral therapy. It was specifically developed to help individuals prone to recurrent depression learn to recognize and disengage from negative thought patterns before they spiral.
Gotcha.
And the meta-analysis found both of these approaches, MBSR and MBCT, were effective for reducing both anxiety and depression symptoms.
And critically, how long did the benefits last? Did people just feel better right after finishing the 8-week program, or were the effects sustained over time?
This is another really crucial positive finding highlighted in Source 3. The researchers looked at follow-up data from the studies. And the good news is the effects on both anxiety and depression symptoms were significantly maintained over the follow-up period.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, the follow-up period averaged about 27 weeks, so over 6 months, with a median of 12 weeks. And the effect sizes at follow-up were still robust, maintaining a moderate level of effectiveness. The G was 0.60 for both anxiety and depression symptoms at follow-up.
So it's not just a temporary fix. These practices seem to offer lasting benefits that help people maintain their improvements over several months, maybe longer. That's really encouraging.
That's definitely the indication. The benefits appear quite durable. The meta-analysis Also briefly compare the effects of MBT to control groups and what you'd expect from a typical psychological placebo effect.
Yeah.
Well, while they acknowledge some limitations in the controlled studies due to smaller numbers in some cases, the authors noted that the observed effect sizes for MBT were generally greater than the typical effect size associated with just a psychological placebo, which the source cited as being around 0.45.
Okay.
This suggests that the improvements seen with MBT are likely due to the specific mechanisms of the mindfulness practices themselves, not just the general factors of being in a program, receiving attention, or having positive expectations. Those things probably help too.
Right. So to kind of summarize the impact of the research, the evidence, particularly this large meta-analysis, provides really strong scientific backing for the effectiveness of mindfulness-based therapies. It's shown to be effective for reducing anxiety and depression, with particularly large effects for those with clinical diagnoses. And importantly, these benefits appear to be durable over several months. It really reinforces that idea that these practices build genuine inner strength and resilience, making future stressors less impactful.
Yeah, it moves mindfulness firmly out of the realm of just being a nice idea or something purely alternative and into the category of a validated, evidence-geared approach for mental and physical well-being.
Which brings us right back full circle to our listener, the learner, who's navigating a busy, anxious life and wants practical, actionable knowledge. We've seen the heavy toll of chronic stress. We have explored how mindfulness counteracts it physiologically and psychologically. We've covered a whole wide range of practical tools from tiny breaths to bigger shifts. And now we have the strong scientific evidence validating its effectiveness and durability. The big question remains, how do you actually integrate this when you feel completely overwhelmed and totally time-starved?
And it all circles back to that core insight from Source 2, reinforced by all those practical tools we discussed. Mindfulness for busy lives is not about finding hours you don't have. It's really about finding moments you can reclaim. The power isn't necessarily in the length of the practice. It's in the intention and the consistency.
So those 1-minute breathing exercises, the 30-second sensory check-ins, integrating mindfulness into washing dishes or taking a walk, these small moments are legitimate ways to start. They actually count.
Absolutely. They are designed precisely for this context. It's about reframing it, not as adding another chore to your already packed list, but as finding tiny pockets of intentional presence within your day. Taking micro pauses to reconnect with your breath, notice your physical state, or ground yourself through your senses.
Okay.
And acknowledging the common challenge that your mind will race. You might feel awkward at first. You might think, I'm not doing this right. That's actually part of the practice too. Mindfulness isn't about achieving perfection. It's about the practice itself, the persistence, gently bringing your attention back again and again without judgment. These small, consistent practices are the very building blocks of that resilience the research speaks about.
And it sounds like it's important to experiment too, right? To find what resonates personally. Not every technique will click for everyone.
It's exactly right. We've offered a whole toolkit here based on the sources. Try a few of the breathing techniques. See if focusing on your senses feels accessible. Try mindful walking or mindful eating. Explore self-compassion practices. Find 1 or 2 simple practices that feel less like a burden and more like a brief moment of respite or clarity for you. The goal is progress, not perfection. It's about finding sustainable ways to interrupt that automatic stress response cycle and cultivate moments of being amidst the constant doing.
So the ultimate takeaway then from this deep dive seems to be that finding calm in the midst of modern chaos isn't really about eliminating stress altogether, which is often unrealistic anyway. It's about fundamentally changing your relationship with stress and developing your capacity to navigate it with more awareness and less automatic reactivity. And this is achieved through intentional practice, starting with simple, accessible moments woven into your day, whether it's literally a minute of mindful breathing, a brief sensory check-in while you wait for something, or consciously stepping away from multitasking for 5 minutes. The science provides robust validation, particularly for managing anxiety and depression, and shows that these efforts build lasting resilience.
And maybe let's leave you with this final thought, building on that powerful research we discussed about stress physically changing the brain. If chronic stress can physically reshape your brain in detrimental ways, making you more reactive, more forgetful, less able to think clearly, what could consistently choosing moments of calm and intentional presence do? What could the cumulative effect of intentionally activating that parasympathetic rest and restore system, potentially reducing amygdala activity over time, and maybe fostering growth in areas like the prefrontal cortex and hippocampus? What could that do to reshape your brain, your emotional landscape, and your entire experience of life in positive, enduring ways? The possibility of reversing that sense of overwhelm and building profound inner resilience is available to you, starting with the very next breath you take.
That's a really powerful note to end on. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into finding calm in chaos. We genuinely encourage you, our listener, to pick just one single tiny practice we discussed today, maybe that 1-minute breath, or simply noticing the texture of your keyboard or phone screen right now, and just try incorporating it at least once today and maybe once or twice more this week. Just see what small shift it creates.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive, taking complex topics and exploring them in detail to help you navigate the world with a little more insight and maybe a few more aha moments.
Until next time, take care.